Okay, welcome back to episode 4. I'm starting to get the hang of this. It's taken a little while even just to learn how to upload the videos. Episode 4 I'm calling Holy Chemo Batman. So hot off the press, we've just come home from the visit to the oncologist. So my sister Sue came down last night because Derek's gone back to work. So she came down to go to the oncologist with me, who was Dr Michael Slancar. He was awesome. Not your normal traditional doctor. He was a little bit cheeky, had a really good sense of humour and, just keeps you in really good spirits. So basically what he said to me is, look, you're really healthy. Your diabetes is well controlled. I think you're going to get really good outcomes of this. But he stepped me through everything. We asked about, what's going to happen with the chemo. So the chemo potentially will start, well, actually there's no potentially, it will start next week. So I get that Portacat, I think I told you, in on the Monday, the 3rd of November, and then I go in for the first round of chemo on the Tuesday. So no mucking around. So what he said I've got is stage 2 cancer, but he's calling it high risk. Now, I think it was high risk because there's some markers in the blood, but basically what the chemo will do will kill anything that's in my system, basically. But 2 sequences of chemo. So this is probably a little bit more intense than we were expecting. So the first round is on one drug, which I'm going to learn about and will be another episode. 4 treatments of that every 2 weeks. So that's the one that will start on Tuesday. And that's where I will lose my hair. So we'll talk about that in a second. After that is another 12 weeks of weekly chemo, and that's for the second drug. So all up it's 20 weeks, which sort of was a bit of a surprise for me because, again, I think I was still thinking of okay, we're done in the new year, which we won't be. So he talked about then requiring surgery, which I knew from Dr. Div, and then radiation afterwards just to make sure everything's done. But he did say this type of cancer is very much related to cancer of your uterus and in your gynecological areas. So he did say that, you should also consider getting keyhole hysterectomy as well, just to be safe. So it all seems like a lot. But it's each stage at a time. So as I said, second treatment, they're saying I will lose my hair. So he's saying cut your hair, then the night before the second treatment, shave it and get a wig. My sister was very excited because apparently she's always wanted to be a hairdresser and is lining up to be the one to cut my hair. So we'll see how that goes, whether her dream will come true. But he said there shouldn't be too many side effects. He's not actually expecting me to be sick from the chemo. They, obviously put anti-nausea drugs in there. And he said, because I'm healthy, and this was the funny thing, he said, and because you drink wine, your body's already used to you putting toxins into it. So I'm like, finally an upside of drinking wine. So he sort of said the worst thing he thinks will happen is that I'll have fatigue. But the chemo could take 3 to 4 hours, and if you have any reactions, it could be 8 hours. So he basically said, block out the whole day for chemo. You can't drive yourself because obviously you're under the influence of drugs, so you need somebody to take you to and from chemo. I'll see him probably at the 6-week marker. He'll come in and out. Dr. Diviani will be watching the growth of the cancer or the shrinkage of the cancer. So basically, I'll see him at the same time because I was wondering why the surgeon was involved at this time, but he's the one monitoring the size and he will report back to Michael. So I'll have both of them looking over me. As I said, he wasn't too concerned, so I'm still feeling fairly upbeat about it. And as he said to me, have a look at all the people in the waiting room. Nobody there actually looks sick because the advancements with chemo has actually meant that they're getting better outcomes as well. So looks like it's all going to kick off pretty quickly. The thing I did ask about was around whether my autoimmune system would be effective. He said no. He said it's a myth. He said we actually give you an injection to improve your immunity. So that was a good thing, because people talk about you being immune compromised when you have chemo, but he didn't seem to think that was going to be a problem. He doesn't want me to travel back and forth, though, for work, which, I already knew that, and work already knows that as well. We did talk about me going up for graduation, because for those who don't know, the day of the biopsy was when I got my PhD back with only minor revisions. So it looks like my PhD is going to be conferred, and graduation is on the 4th of December. But again, just treating that with a lot of common sense in terms of, what we do for that as well, whether we go up or not. It's obviously something I'm looking forward to, so we shall see. The funniest thing was at the end, he said to me, look, this isn't medical advice, this is probably personal advice, but, I'd advise you not to tell too many people. And Susan and I sort of looked at each other, and I'm like, oh, okay. I may have already told pretty much the whole university. And he went, oh, okay. And I said, and maybe I've got a YouTube channel as well. Just sort of looked at me and laughed at me. And he said, look, the main thing is that you'll have people wanting to give you advice, or there's people who just enjoy being miserable, and they talk about friends who have died from it and all of that. But as Susan said, I don't actually listen to that, and I'm very resilient, so it's not going to worry me anyway. So I'd rather be open and honest with everybody, so people know what's going on, rather than people thinking the worst and, saying, oh, Narelle's not great, when Narelle is actually fine. So that's the latest update. So I think the next one will be when I go to get a portacath put in next Monday, which is the 3rd of November, although I may come back on. This is quite therapeutic for me. It's like having my own diary that I don't have to sit down and write Dear Diary. So thank you to my 14 subscribers. I'm very excited about that. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.